are going to go in 3, 2, 1, and...
Hi. Steve Gillmor, Gillmor Gang, 2020. September. That's right. Okay, we've got in London, we've got Frank Radice.
Hi there. Sorry for the odd-shaped picture.
We'll deal with it.
But it's not in London.
Yeah, it's not in London.
No, I'm in New York. What are you saying? I'm not in London.
I think he was hoping that you would catch that.
Yeah,
I was pretending that I was hoping. Actually, I just forgot.
I'm trying to start a watch party here. It's much more important than knowing where I am, but I am in New York.
All right. So what is the watch party? Just briefly, because I want to introduce everybody.
So as we stream the show, or as we record the show, the output of the show is going to my Facebook page, to a watch party that is marketed to my Facebook friends. So it will ask my friends if they want to join the watch party, and already we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people watching the Facebook watch party. So I can now see that I look like I'm looking over everybody's head in this shot. I guess that's no better. Anyway, so that's what it is, and we're out on a Facebook watch right now, live, so people can see the show before you edit it and refeed it on TechCrunch.
Okay. Welcome to Brent Leary.
Hello. I was too busy reading the first comment. As soon as Frank starts a watch party, you get comments flowing in. Somebody named Lynn Henderson says, "Hi from Orlando." Hi, Frank, my old.
Hey, Lynn, how are you? Lynn's been in the business for a long time.
What business?
The media.
Ah.
Yeah, one of the
media-centric.
Well, probably a lot of media people, a lot of music people, probably more television and digital advertising type people that are friends with me on Facebook. I try to use my Facebook page more as a work tool than as a place to just convene socially. I don't really use it for that. And so most of the people who are following me on Facebook follow me because of some work-related thing. And I feel like Gillmor Gang is now work.
Oh,
Well, great to be here.
Can I just point something out about Frank? There's already 15 shares to this. Frank, how many pages do you have this thing going to?
He's a viral kind of guy, and I mean,
I actually don't. I see that people are sharing it now, yeah, and I don't know what the size of their social media is, but I suppose there's a way to analyze that, but I'm not sure what that is without having to go and pay for
after
it.
the show.
Oh, you know what? That's not Frank. That's Keith. Keith snuck up and is sharing like crazy. He's just been sitting here like this the whole time, and I'm seeing shares just going nuts here.
Welcome, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
It turns out on Facebook, I'm famous in my own lifetime.
Well, definitely in your own mind, right?
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. So I've introduced you now, although you didn't respond.
I was too busy getting my watch party going. I was jealous of Frank, so I had to.
Well, at least we.
So wait a minute, but that means, Brent, that means you were watching Keith's watch party and not mine.
No, because I only just started mine. I literally.
Okay.
I'll watch yours the second half.
Yeah, just back and forth, man. You can A and B it.
Okay, Michael Markman, welcome.
Hello, how do you do? I am not sharing anybody's watch party.
Well, what are you doing?
Just chatting with you guys. If anybody else is listening in, I welcome them, but I'm not soliciting them.
Okay, and you're in the Seattle area, correct?
I'm in the Seattle area. I'm across the lake from Seattle in Kirkland, Washington.
Yes, home of Microsoft as well, right?
Not exactly. They're in Redmond, which is an adjacent town.
Smaller town, right? Isn't Kirkland bigger than Redmond?
I'm not really up to speed on that.
There's that bridge that you go over, right?
There is a bridge. Yes, the bridge. The bridge.
It's a series of floating. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's called a floating bridge. It sits on top of the water. There are a couple of points in it that are not floating, where they've driven some piles down and they've elevated the bridge so boats can go under it. So most of it is floating, though, and it was recently revised. They're still constructing the off ramps on the Seattle side, but it's a replacement bridge that went up over about the last 5 years.
So this must be Infrastructure Week here on the Gillmor Gang.
It's always Infrastructure Week in Seattle,
and in Donald Trump's mind. Speaking of Donald Trump, how about Denis Pombriant? Welcome.
There's nothing similar about us. Don't do that.
Speaking of Donald Trump, there's Denis Pombriant.
Also, I have no watch party because I cut the cord with Facebook a long time ago.
And why did you do that?
Because they suck.
Well, that's
Don't mince words. Tell us how you really feel, man.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's not telling us.
I recognize that word. Donald Trump's used that word recently.
Oh.
Ooh.
They're trying to link you to Donald Trump for some reason here, Denis. What's
Really?
up with that?
Well, assuming the link holds, I'd like everybody to go out and vote for Joe Biden.
Excellent. So, at the risk of talking only about the political race, let's not talk about it and talk about. I was trying to get to this issue that Keith Teare talked about in his real-time feed. What's it called? That was the week that wasn't?
That was the week.com.
Oh.
That was the week.com. You
Okay.
heard it here. I've got a little song.
Uh-oh.
If you have forsaken your bong, go to thatwastheweek.com.
Oh man, that's age appropriate.
Well, luckily it's appropriate for somebody, but
For some of us.
yeah, exactly.
But what was it I did there that you wanted to talk about?
You were talking about the impact of Washington versus the tech giants.
Yeah, DC versus us. My gardeners come, so I think you should pick up on that theme, and I should mute until the gardeners
Fine,
come.
No, we're gonna-
just answer the question.
So basically, yesterday, Attorney General Barr accelerated his effort to do an antitrust case against Google. And the New York Times covered it. And the main point the New York Times made was that the Democrats are pissed off because they want to do this as soon as they get into power. So they're trying to slow him down, not because they disapprove, but because they don't like the fact that he's doing it. So my editorial in my newsletter this week basically says that the gap between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Barr on this subject is wafer thin to non-existent. And Silicon Valley, Google is not a monopoly at all by any definition. And that this is just politics picking an enemy in order to try to look good. And they both should be ashamed of themselves.
Talk amongst yourselves.
I see a different reason, and I see it related to the Steve Bannon arrest as well. I think Barr is setting up a lot of false prosecutions that will die gracefully either after when Barr leaves Washington or leaves the administration at the end of the year. I don't think either one of those things has teeth. And as a matter of fact, where Bannon is concerned, I think that's a sweetheart deal. I think Donald Trump can't pardon anybody until they've had an indictment, at least, or a conviction. And by indicting Bannon, it leaves Trump wide open to give him a blanket clemency or blanket pardon, which would keep us all from knowing his role in the Russian collusion of 2016. So I think it's rather cynical.
Michael?
I missed a step. What does that have to do with Google?
I was going to ask the same question.
Me too.
I don't know what it has to do with Google yet, but I think it's a false prosecution designed to create some headlines, maybe just to make Trump look good, and the prosecution's going to go away. And then when it goes away, and if Biden is elected, it's going to be hard because of double jeopardy. I mean, people will make the case that re-indicting Google is a form of double jeopardy, and that would be that.
I see what you're saying, and you know what? It sounds so plausible and so perverse on the part of the administration. And yes, we should be ashamed for them.
What's interesting is that 50 state attorneys support an antitrust case against Google, which blows me away, given that Facebook has been eating Google's lunch on advertising. And the monopoly they're talking about, by the way, is online advertising, which Google is losing its share of rapidly. And the fact that 50 state attorneys of all political shades think it's a good idea tells you this is more than a ruse.
This is politics.
It's a good idea, except for the fact that the 40 attorneys at the Justice Department who are responsible for bringing the case asked for more time. Barr said, no, you have to bring the case by the end of September. And they said, we're going to have a crappy case as a result.
Correct. That's exactly right. And so Barr is definitely playing politics. I agree with you on that, Dennis. But I think there is some underlying anti-big tech sentiment that is actually more predominant in the Democratic Party than the Republican.
Yeah, that's the part of your thesis that I don't think is supported by anything that I can ascertain. Why do you think that the Democrats are, somehow equally participating in this antitrust environment?
Well, I'm deriving that from just having watched the candidate debates with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie and Kamala. Almost all of them, especially the more left they are, talked about the need to rein in big tech with more regulation and anti-monopoly. Breaking things up is an often used phrase, which strikes me as being from a sentiment point of view. I get it, but the facts don't support the narrative, which is there are no monopolies in Silicon Valley right now.
This is a personal thing. This is jealousy. This is one man's wild imagination filtering down through all of the people that can make stuff happen, starting with Barr.
Yeah, but that's the Republican side. But the Democratic side, I think that Keith is implying that there's some sort of institutional, according to him, coming from the left, animus toward big tech. And I know that is a common opinion in terms of the media, but I'm not sure that it's as accurate as Keith is suggesting.
Are you talking about on the Democrat side?
Yeah, that's one of the things that he said was
I don't
the Democrats
I don't see that either.
Excellent.
Well, why do you think Elizabeth Warren keeps banging on about it?
But she didn't win the nomination, and Kamala Harris has got a lot of support in the tech community. So I don't understand the general thesis of this. It seems to be equivalency politics that is being observed or invented.
Look, I also think that there's so many people looking at that industry as being the biggest industries in the world today, generating the most money of all the industries in the world today. It makes them a gigantic moving target to anybody, and an easy target to hit because they're so big.
Yeah, I think it's also a bit of a fallacy to equate antitrust with monopolies. The antitrust laws are specifically against monopolies, but they're also against more general actions which are anti-competitive, restraint of competition or conspiracy in restraint of trade. So I don't think you quite have to get to monopoly status to raise some eyebrows in the Justice Department.
I don't agree with that, Michael. I don't think the laws offer that. I mean, I can tell you I've been tutored by lawyers because I was the CEO of a company that could have been accused of being a monopoly. VeriSign as well, with the .com, by the way. I've been very involved with VeriSign. And the actual law is not even that it's bad to be a monopoly. The actual law is you cannot abuse monopoly power.
Right.
Now, competitive stuff is what capitalism is all about. So clearly there's a gray area, which is when do you cross over from being a good capitalist to being a bad capitalist? And Microsoft clearly was found guilty of being a bad capitalist because it abused its power by making it impossible for others to compete in tangential. For example, it put disk compression into Windows and killed double disk. Was it double disk? I forgot the name now. But
yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. So the line is actually quite well defined as being abuse of monopoly power. So number one, you have to be a monopoly first.
No, but dominance is enough. You don't have to be a monopoly. You don't have to be the only power in the marketplace. If your activity is such that you are constraining trade, which you can do by buying up competitors or undercutting your competitors, to the extent that you affect the markets, I think that raises some flags.
There's a point where we're not
One of the things that the tech giants love to do is buy up people who are doing interesting things that might turn into competition.
Yeah, I mean, as an early stage investor, I just, for the record, I actually hate Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, who do acqui-hires. I hate it because they cut off at the knees promising startups by acquiring them early. But I don't know that that's new. I think that's always happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with it either. Denis, you had something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, the point is, and I think this supports what Michael's saying about monopoly power, is that concentrated in the hands of a very small number of companies is a great deal of data about consumers that is not regulated at all. And we've seen over the last 5 years great abuse of that data. And it strikes me that the anti-monopoly forces in DC and in Europe, as a matter of fact, are especially focused on what happens to the data and how people are abusing the data, at least as much as anything to do with competition on individual platforms.
And they're related, by the way, because if you're in a position to acquire that data and analyze that data, that gives you a lot of insight into who you might want to acquire as a potential competitor.
Precisely.
Yeah, well, it gives you also the opportunity to sell the data.
Brent, you've got a show called Going Amazon or something like that. It's about Amazon.
Close enough. Watching Amazon.
How come we're not in the land of the pandemic and Amazon's enormous growth as a result of the staying home phenomenon? How come they're not being looked at this way?
No, they're being looked at in about 100 other different ways, mainly because there's a vendetta. I call it the kind of the billionaire hunger game between current resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and his self-proclaimed arch nemesis, because Jeff Bezos doesn't seem to want any part of this, but because he's more successful and has more money, I think he becomes a target. That's why you have this postal service thing. That's why you might have had high level messing around with that whole Department of Defense $10 billion thing, where one company was supposedly had it in the palm of their hands, and all of a sudden the current resident of 1600 Avenue said, hey, some people have been telling me this process is messed up. He never says who the people are, just some people.
Yeah,
and then
we'll
all of a
see.
sudden, Amazon went from having it almost in their grasp to Microsoft winning it. So Amazon is I think it's just a different case here, because
no, I think
animus
I don't
in
think
that.
so. I don't think so. I think that they are exactly the case because, as I said earlier, because there's something personal going on here. There is a jealousy. There is a personality problem. There is a personal problem.
There's also
Bezos
the Washington Post problem.
Yeah, the Washington Post.
Oh yes, well,
another
I was
thing.
going to say, just getting to Bezos is that as a part of it. Aside from the fact that Trump wants to own his own network. He wants to own Fox. He wants that to be the voice of the Republican Party or the voice of Trumpism, but he can't do that. So I got to think he's just, even though Bezos doesn't stick his fingers in the editorial end of that newspaper, as far as I know, it's something that he controls in the media, and Trump has no control other than being able to pick up the phone and call someone at Amazon. And I meant to ask you, Keith, here you go, Steve. I meant to ask you, when you went through your list of all of those fangs, that you left out Amazon.
Actually,
Yeah, I noticed that.
Amazon is probably the least monopoly in most areas that they're talking about, because they're talking about search. However, Amazon now has 7% of internet search, up from under 1% a couple of years ago. So Google's pie chart is now 7% owned by Amazon and growing. And that's because,
digital ads too. Amazon,
and advertising. So Amazon is definitely one of the reasons Google is not a monopoly is Amazon. The other one is Apple. Apple and Facebook this week had a face-off. Apple, as you all know, in iOS 14 is introducing the requirement for a consumer to opt in to their data being used. And Facebook went apeshit this week saying, you can't do that. Or they are going to do that, and it's going to impact us massively, is what they said. And then yesterday, Apple backed down and said they're going to delay doing it until 2021. So this is a one conversation, and it's about data, it's about advertising and targeting, it's about search as the underlying driver of eyeballs to advertise to and to capture data from. But none of it's a monopoly, but it is, as Denis says, a small number of very large companies own the lion's share of all of that.
It's size.
Make it an oligopoly.
The size matters here.
They'd have to be in cahoots, which they're clearly not, especially Apple.
Well,
there's this thing about this term that's really starting to become prominent: data surveillance companies.
Yeah.
Where, for example, if your company has a website and you want to run Google Ads campaigns to try to drive traffic, that means a little bit of your code, Google code, has to go on your website, and that means data is being transferred over to Google from your website of customers or prospects. And once that data kind of leaves your purview, what's to keep Google from selling it to a third party for reasons that might actually be detrimental to your customer base, but you can't control? So you're called a data surveillance company because even if you don't mean to be, you are feeding customer data, activity, whatever you want to call it, to a third party like Google or Facebook or whoever, who can then do things like sell it and let other companies use that data to do whatever they want to it. And that is getting to be a bigger problem.
Brent, I would say, my whole career has been being a builder of data services. It's kind of it's kind of a byproduct of digitization that you can track things, and you need to for all kinds of good reasons, by the way, and then there's bad reasons. So the only thing that you can really do is give consumers opt-in rights and be transparent, but you probably can't stop the growth of data into massive data pools.
So
You probably
question,
can't.
my question is this. Sorry, Frank. My question is, what is, I mean, you brought this up, Keith, in terms of your post, but to what end? What are you trying to accomplish by talking about this?
It's political for me. I believe the Democrats are about as bad as the Republicans at the policy level, if not worse in some areas.
Well, that's the thesis that I've already challenged.
I am not a Republican for sure, and I'm not a Democrat either. And I thought it was a really good opportunity to show how similar they are.
But what, first of all, I don't agree with the thesis. Secondly, what is your purpose for doing this? Are you running for office? I mean, what are you doing?
You don't know this, but I did actually run against the British Treasury Minister, Oliver Letwin, to be an MP in Oxford once. So I do have a track record of running for office. But as a Brit, I can't be president, and I wouldn't want to be anything less than that. So the answer is no, I'm not running for office.
So what are you doing bringing this up, and what are your goals? What do you expect from a pragmatic perspective that is going to be accomplished by this discussion?
Well,
Geez, Quasimodo.
Your expectation is that I have a coherent answer to that other than being mischievous, which I don't. So I'm just being mischievous.
Well, Denis.
Yeah, you can do that. Brits are allowed to be mischievous.
Denis,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this particular political commentary? Do you think that there's any value in it at this stage of we're 8 weeks out in terms of the presidential race? Is this relevant to those kinds of concerns, or is this an attempt by the technology community to try and be introspective?
Well, let's ladle on more. There was an interesting article in the New York Times this morning. I don't know if any of you caught it. The headline is TikTok bid highlights Oracle's public embrace of Trump. And I'm not sure where it all goes, but it certainly says that the tech community is not a monolith. It's not all going for the Democrats. And I think there's an awful lot here to filter, and I just don't know how to start.
Okay. Anybody else have any additional thoughts on this?
I would just say, Dennis, put the URL, go to the Telegram channel, and for all the listeners, it's t.me/GGX, t.me/GGX, and put that link in from that New York Times article, because I'd love to read that.
Yeah, I'd like to as well.
I believe I put it up on the Gillmor gang this morning, but let me just, there it is. It's back at you.
Thanks, got it. I would have, it has all the classic earmarks of being some distraction that the administration is trying for. And it also seems to me like a desperate effort to want to feel as though they are actually a part of the change that's coming in the tech world, that they understand it. Because some people say,
what are you saying? What is the change coming?
Well, just that the tech, that there's how can there be any doubt that there isn't a tremendous forward thinking and movement in the world of tech today? Everything from driverless cars to voice technology to the way that social media has impacted everybody's life, whatever the outcome of that is. I was being general when I was talking about that, because it seems to me that this is an administration that, aside from wanting to be there for 4 more years, needs to feel as though somehow it needs to project that it's relevant in this very important part of the world. And look, there's no argument that tech is what's driving the NASDAQ, and the NASDAQ has just dived headlong into the middle of the abyss for the last 2 days. I'm not exactly sure where it is right now, but it's been damn disappointing. Apple's been the one that's been the leader of that downward laggard pack. And so I just think that, as I said, it felt like it had all the earmarks of a distraction, but is it, in terms of its import to the rest of the world listening to this as a story, I don't think it matters. And I also don't think it matters in this political climate right now. I think they're trying to be relevant and have some piece of that pie, but they don't really need to. And it seems like a distraction in any case to me.
Who is they, by the way? Who's
okay, so I was using sort of the colloquial they, the way that Trump uses it. People tell me, it's anecdotal and it's anecdotal certainly on one very specific political spectrum. I admit that, and that's who the they are to me. It just feels to me, however, that overall on either side of the political spectrum, that this is a story that actually doesn't matter right now.
I agree.
It's going to matter.
I agree with that. I mean, the number one story is COVID. The number two story is the economy. Number three story is demonstrations, and there's climate change.
And then there's health.
The size of Google in terms of how much attention it's going to command in the political discourse is minuscule.
Yeah, and that's why I don't understand that. That's why I don't understand it.
Well, then it all.
I see it.
It all goes back to a bright shining object that bars dangling in front of the press.
This is like 2018 where they're putting the federal agents at the border because there was a caravan of marauders coming.
Let's not forget the caravan.
Yeah, and then what happened to the caravan after that election day? They just like magically disappeared, and nobody ever talked about them.
What are you talking about?
This is just throwing stuff up there to just try to make some kind of a difference for November 3rd, because that's all this dude cares about.
Okay, well,
anything that comes up is about that.
So Brent has one person is still holding on to the idea that Trump is going to win. How do you think that things are going as far as the election?
Nothing has changed for me. Nothing. This guy is still. We're still not at nowhere near where the bottom of his bag of tricks are. He is going to try to throw a kitchen sink, take everything down. If he's going down, he's taking everything down. If there's a way that he can win this election 32-31, he's going to try to find it.
Well, that's fine, but
there's no doubt about that. The question is anything that he's doing going to be effective?
Exactly. And what do you think, Michael?
I think so.
I think so far it doesn't look that way, but there's miles to go before we get all the votes counted. He had a rare disciplined week last week in the convention. The tweeting was kind of muffled. He stayed on script. He read from a teleprompter. Whoever it is that managed the convention tried to put a broad face on the Republican Party. They had a lot of brown and black faces on the screen. They made you they tried to perfume what everybody thinks about Trump. COVID was not present. And then suddenly this week, as always happens when you chain him to the teleprompter for a day or two, he lets loose. And this has been a horrible week in terms of his communications.
He's making up for last week.
We're not even mentioning what happened like yesterday, last night. I mean,
well, let's talk about what happened this morning or this afternoon. Biden gave a speech in a press conference that was just amazing.
I saw that. It was great.
It's in his expression of anger, in his coherence, in his grasp of the dynamics of the campaign. I could just imagine anyone on Trump's debate prep team who saw Biden this morning is just shitting bricks. It does not portend well for what's going to happen when the two of them go face to face.
That's the technical term, right?
Yes.
shitting brick? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, he said portend. That took care of it.
Thanks.
You know, there's one other telltale point that we should think about, and it is the article from the New Yorker from a day or two ago, in which the reporter reported a survey that was taken within the military of something like 1,700 active duty people, and most of them were officers, about who they were supporting for president, and Trump lost. Trump
And that
lost.
was
41 to
before the,
37.
and
That was
that
before
was-
the Jeffrey Goldberg piece came out. Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Yes.
If he was losing 2 days ago, imagine what he's doing today.
Okay,
yeah, I was
so
just
let
thinking
me
exactly the same thing.
let me do my my nervous roundup. I'm nervous about anything that talks about Florida as being even reachable for Biden. I think that's not happening. I'm nervous about. I'm not nervous about Arizona. That seems to be going Biden's way big time.
Pennsylvania. What about that? That getting
Yeah,
nervous,
I'm
Pennsylvania?
not nervous about Pennsylvania because I haven't seen the data. The data is typically
One poll came out that was it had him up 12 last month, and now that same poll has him up only 4 this month. Then they just came out with another poll that has him up by like 8 or 10 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well,
All over.
It seems like things are going back to the eight with a plus or minus 3 is what it sounds like. Things are moving. There's been a move in the polls over the week.
Yeah.
that would be. I wouldn't be nervous if the outcome of this sort of valley of the conventions is superseded by having eaten up 2 of the 9 weeks left. So if we've got 7 or 8 points separating, that starts to feel like a pretty safe bet for Biden.
Well,
Go back to
if you're a political operative, you kind of map out a campaign in terms of certain key events. The convention is one, and then usually there's a lull until the first debate, which is the next big one. But this week just popped up out of nowhere, and I think it's all of the stuff about Trump and the military and Biden really commanding response today. Just insert itself as a new tentpole event in the campaign. I think there's going to be a lot of consequences over this past week that we've just been through.
What about?
Can we
what
go
about
back
Trump's
to-
denial of having a stroke? Or
Well, that's part of this week.
that was a completely.
If you make the whole list of
That
things,
feels like way past this week. So
Yeah, but that military poll, I think, is the one stat that I found really even beyond the 41 to 37 was, I think they said only 16% of the military are registered Democrats. So if only 16% of the military are registered Democrats, and Biden won 41 to 37, I mean, that actually, to me, speaks even bigger than that, just looking at the 41-37 mark, because that's like almost a complete party of one, and they voted for the other guy. That's, if I were you guys holding on to the hope that Biden wins, that would be one of those things that I would hang my hat on a bit.
yeah, you know what?
All the other Hollywood squares, right?
He's not moving, and I am still tending towards Brent's point of view as of last week. Although this has been a pretty interesting, positive week, anti-Brent. I will say. But
is this anti-Trump now? Anti-Brent?
Yeah,
What's
exactly,
going on?
anti-Brent, but on the
Frank,
pro-Brent side.
Frank, you keep straddling this. It's like
No, I'm not straddling.
American
I am not straddling.
Okay. I want to hear from
I would
Pete.
say that my legs are akimbo on the back of that horse.
Okay, whatever that means. I
You
haven't
understood
heard that.
you got that, didn't you, Dennis? You got
Really?
Yes, it was.
What?
It's ANTE, not ANTI.
Okay, yeah, like antipasto.
AUNTIE.
Yeah.
ANTE, as in before.
All right, so Keith, please weigh in.
Well, I should tell you that in 2016 on the election, I was at the theater in London, sat next to an American couple who asked me what I thought was going to happen. And I said, Trump's going to win. And they kind of almost fell out of their seat. And I wished I was wrong, but I was right. Now, because I'm such an expert and I've gotten it right, I'm going to say that Biden is still going to win by an electoral college landslide.
Wow.
But the popular vote will be roughly what it was for Hillary, slightly better in Biden's favor than Hillary, but not massively different.
Like that means anything.
What like that means anything? So I think
Well, most of these guys on TV are saying that Biden needs to win by like at least 7 points in order to have make him safe in the electoral vote. Because they're saying if he goes down to that, well, Hillary lost with 2 or 3%. If he even goes below 5, they're saying that he could win the popular vote but still lose the electoral vote,
Yeah,
which would be even
Nate
a
Silver,
bigger mess.
No,
Nate Silver put out a list of his calculation on what popular vote percentage translates into what odds of winning the electoral vote, and up to a 3% win by Biden is less than a 50% chance of winning the electoral college. If he gets it over 4, the odds go up. If he gets it to 5, 6, or 7, it's an overwhelming chance that Biden will win the electoral college.
There you go.
My calculation is different to that. What I'm asking myself, how many states will Trump get the majority in? Now, I know even that doesn't necessarily translate because the regions within the states all matter, but I don't think Trump will get a majority in more than 15 states.
Which 15?
Mainly the southern states and some in the Midwest.
Yeah, that's it.
I think you're right. I think your calculus is better. What the aggregate vote really speaks to is how many Democratic leaning states ran up the score. So, for example, California is going to run up the score and go for Biden, and anything more than one vote over half is wasted. So what Biden needs to do is to make sure that not only does he win the popular vote, but that popular vote spreads so that it spreads to states where it might have been a borderline condition and tipped over to his side. That's why the borderline states are so important.
Well, so my calculation is this. What Biden did today on the press conference, first of all, he's holding press conferences. He makes a statement about something, and then he opens it for questions. That automatically pulls him away from Trump, who is trying desperately not to answer any questions because the questions are all about things he doesn't want to talk about. So I think that strategy is going to inevitably keep Trump pinned down in this media climate as being not the person who's in charge of what is being talked about, but who is being reactive to what is being talked about. And I think
that's a really important point, because up till now, Trump has been master at controlling the narrative and controlling the news cycle. Suddenly, it all seems to have gotten away from him, and
right.
he's playing defense all the time now.
Well,
and I'm waiting for Frank to come back from his, right-leaning start of the last show.
Stay with me, Frank.
Where he was at the end of last show, which was, everything's going to be okay.
Leave Frank alone.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But everything I'm hearing on the show today is pulling me away from you, Brent.
There you go. That was what I was waiting for.
But that's what happened. That's what happened last week, and a week later you were back there.
Yeah, but you know what? It's as I think Dennis said, it's a long drive to the green before we get to that
I think the
election
reality
day.
is that we're all afraid of what Brent's afraid of. We agree with him.
No.
Yeah, and I was the only one that said it right out in front.
Can I
No,
By
ask
the
something?
way,
Brent
although I
is the
did
only
pull
one that
back,
said
I
it out
admit that.
front.
So there are a number of known and probably additional unknown October surprises lurking out there. One is a COVID vaccine. One is whatever Durham's indictments of people in the FBI or the Obama team might turn out to be. Does anybody expect these to have any impact? And of course, the biggest one of all is all the chicanery and cheating regarding mail-in ballots, and whether they will really depress the vote, because that's the only way that Trump wins, is if the anti-Trump vote is somehow suppressed or depressed.
That's the only one to think about. I think that's the only one that matters. The COVID vaccine, it will either work or it won't work. It'll either be done the right way or it'll be done the wrong way. Some combination of all of that.
Well, the thing is, we won't know that. If they announce a vaccine at the end of October, we won't know if it works or not.
Go ahead.
I think that
I want to hear what Dennis says.
they've already announced the vaccine.
I want to hear what Dennis says.
Michael is exactly right. There is not enough time before Election Day for a vaccine to come out or to have it be proven as effective. A vaccine announcement is a pure red herring designed by one guy to get reelected.
Just like Ukraine, all the corruption in Ukraine. That was there was no proof at all, but he didn't even want to have, or he didn't say you had to go ahead and investigate Biden. He just wanted to say that they were investigating Biden, so he can hold that over their head just as for the election purposes.
It's another caravan.
Okay, Brent. I mean,
we have evidence. We have evidence that all of these things don't work so far. The caravan didn't work. The Ukraine corruption didn't work. Nothing is sticking.
Frank, I interrupted you. What you were saying?
But so do we think that the announcement of a vaccine will also not work? Will that be part of the pattern of things Trump tries to have just lost his magic?
They've already announced the vaccine, I believe. I don't think an announcement's going to make one hill of beans. I actually don't.
People are going to remember his approach to the virus, and they will not give him personal credit for a vaccine.
No. One of the people on that's watching our watch party says, "I'm listening to the science guys right now. No vaccine till next year." I think a lot of people are thinking that.
Can I share one idea with you? There was
hold the thought. I just want to say to Brent, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with your dance party over on another network.
That's right. Have fun, guys, and remember, Frank, you're always welcome on this side, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I'll let you know. You'll be the first to know. I'll send you a rocket.
Brent's base shows signs of teetering, I think. Dennis, you were saying.
Yeah.
I read an article a few weeks ago that puts this vaccine thing into context. It will require billions of individual vials, glass vials, to distribute, and we don't have them yet. There's no way you can even say we're going to distribute it to 25% of the population. It just the vials don't exist. They're not hard to make, but in that kind of quantity, it becomes a real logistical challenge.
Let me ask.
I had read that the work on that began months ago. That they weren't going to try and do it sequentially, wait for the vaccine to be approved and then work on distribution, and that they were actually proactively building out the supply even without approval, so that when they got approval, it was ready to roll.
Well, they were doing that. They were doing that with virus or with vaccine, and yeah, there was some lead built into making the vials, but we're talking about a 10-week time frame. And in this 10-week time frame, you're not going to see vaccine that's going to do a lot of good for anybody.
Right.
Yeah, but he doesn't need, Trump doesn't need actual production. He just needs to say that it's coming.
He just needs the headline, and he's already.
I don't
got
think
it.
that's going to work. I don't think that's going to work.
I think Keith mentioned it earlier. His record on phony cures is established. So when he says, "Aha, we have it," who's going to believe it?
Another way to put it is the old joke. How do you know Donald Trump is telling a lie? His lips move.
But
but this, by the way, raises a concern for the future of the vaccine, because the vaccine is not going to work unless people trust it enough to take it.
Yeah, I wanted to, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. Starting with Markman, are you going to be taking the vaccine anytime soon?
Sometime, yes. I can't tell you when, but
what are the requirements for you actually taking it?
I would say a scientific consensus that the double-blind trials have actually been completed and shown that there's effectiveness, and I think I'll hesitate just a little bit because I want to be sure of that. I mean, how long? We don't know. You can't know in 6 weeks whether the vaccine is effective for 6 months. You can't know what its long-term efficacy is unless you have a long-term test.
If you have to choose between staying at home and taking the vaccine, which at what point do you think that could switch from staying at home?
Well, at my point, I don't have any real demands on getting out. Since I'm retired, I can stay at home. I've learned how to stay at home. I wish I could go out, but I've learned how to live without going out.
Well, so that might impact on whether you actually would be a candidate for the vaccine.
No, because I'm not. I mean, the real candidates are people who have to get out. If you have to go to work, if you have to be a frontline worker, if you have to be a medical worker, if you have to be a teacher or do something else which requires you to be out in public, I think you have more urgency to get the vaccine than I do.
Keith,
for me, it's a luxury, not a necessity.
So I went and got an antibody test on Monday because I was sick for 2 weeks. If you remember, I was on the gang and I was kind of coughing and stuff. And I had this kind of low-level flu-like stuff for 2 weeks. And the doctor told me that there's two kinds of bodily reactions. One of them is short-term and one of them is long-term. And the antibody test only tests for the long-term. That is to say, you're immune, but it can't detect the short-term one. So what that tells me is a vaccine, it will be the same. The vaccine will either trigger a bodily reaction with short-term or with permanent immunities. And I don't think they're going to know. I personally would take a vaccine as long as I know it's not harmful.
Okay. Frank has to leave. So Frank, quickly, are you going to take it?
Yes.
As soon as it's available?
As soon as what becomes available has some track record.
Which would be what, 6 months?
I actually think that if I hear Fauci saying that this is a viable vaccine, that I would take it.
All right, Denis?
I would like to take two for a good reason. There are numerous vaccines in test and production or test right now, and they don't all do the same thing. Some develop antibodies to viral coat proteins. Some develop antibodies to messenger RNA, and I think it's critical to get one as a booster because it'll give you a broader spectrum of antibodies against the virus.
Okay, and I have no idea. Right now, I think it's a year away. Let's say thanks to everybody, starting with Frank since he's desperate to leave. And
No, I just got a thing happening, and they're forcing me out of my place for that thing. So it's a showing, so I got to get out.
thanks a lot. Hopefully we'll do this
Thank you.
next week.
Next Friday. See you guys. Thank you.
Good, Frank.
Keith's here. Thank you.
You.
Michael Markman. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, Dennis Pombriant.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks to our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor. Thank you.
Great show.
Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time, because hopefully there will be a next